Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about awards, specifically game awards. More specifically, game awards that my games have won and a few that I personally have won, and then just one thing that's always eluded me, for the most part, with one exception. I want to just talk about it because some of you may be going, "Oh, I know how you feel when you get to the end of this," and others may be going, "Wow, how narcissistic and egotistical are you?" So let's talk about it. So over the years, my games have gotten a lot of awards, and I think they deserved it. I think the team did a fantastic job, and the games did some amazing things, especially for the time in which they got released. Fallout won a lot of role playing game of the year awards from magazines and different websites. It also even got put on lists of top PC games of any genre. And one of them, I think it's on actually two top PC games of all time, which is just amazing. That it kind of shows that it was influential. Now, I mentioned at one point that there was someone who was really upset when I left Interplay and basically told me I was a one-hit wonder and I had nothing to do with the success of Fallout. Arcanum came out 3 years later. Arcanum got RPG of the Year from several places. And I'm like, whew. Now, once again, had a great team, but I was on both of those. And I'm like, hey, I contributed. I think I'm doing a pretty good job. And fast forward, Outer Worlds got a lot of awards, a lot of RPGs of the Year from several places too. And there were people who didn't like the game, and they do this cognitive dissonance thing to try to, and no, there's no way it could have possibly gotten those awards. Well, guess what? It got nominated for a BAFTA for its writing. And I'm super proud of that, and I had nothing to do with the writing. So I'm just putting it out there as the awards for my games have continued. But none of these were awards to me. None of these were people like, hey, you specifically did a really good job. Yes, I have gotten some non-industry wide awards. In other words, I've gotten awards to me at specific companies. When I was at Interplay, and I made GNW, GNW, there's a video about what that is. And I mentioned when I first started it, I had the executive producer saying, why are you wasting time on this? No one's going to use it. People here don't use other people's software. And by the end of the year, there were at least 3 or 4 games that were using it. And I think a total of 6 or 7 may have shipped from Interplay, sitting on top of GNW. And I got an award. Later, years later, when I was at Obsidian, I told you when we were making South Park, they wanted to redo the combat system, and the way they did it was they broke people into teams, strike teams, which ironic for combat, strike teams, and everybody made their own combat system. And I made one which was turn-based, but you didn't go back to your starting point. So rather than run out and attack and run back, you ran out and attacked, and then you stayed there, and then other people could run out, and then there were bonuses and penalties from being attacked from behind, and it did not make it into the final game, but I did win an award for it when we launched for a really cool alternative combat system. Even Carbine, which I've talked about how I'm not a huge fan of my time there, but it was an amazing team. I got an award there too called the Cornerstone Award for my contributions to the game. So I have been recognized within companies. But outside of that, almost until now, I could say I've never been recognized at the industry level. Now, I did. In 2017, I went to the Reboot Develop conference in Dubrovnik in Croatia, and I won the Reboot Hero Award. And huge thanks to Damir Dorovic, who, sponsored getting me this award, and it was amazing. But let's go back just a little bit. I remember having a discussion. It was soon after I started at Obsidian, so it was 2011. So that's almost exactly. I started at Obsidian in October of 2011. I'd been in the industry for 30 years and a couple months. So this was my 31st year in the industry. I had mentioned to a few folks, we were sitting around talking about something, and one of them had said something about would South Park win awards? Would they get any awards? And I mentioned to a few of them that, it's really nice and some of my games have gotten awards, but I had never personally won an award. The Reboot Award was 6 years away. And I still remember it because I got several responses to it. And I remember talking to my office mate later about those responses because there were 3 different kinds of responses I got to just that statement of, I've never personally received an industry recognition award. The first person, or I shouldn't say the first person because several people had ideas and there were just 3 types. The first type of response I got was, oh, that's because you don't network. You don't go out there, you don't go to conferences, you're not meeting people, going to dinners, shaking hands, giving talks. So a lot of people even aren't aware. They're not even aware that these games came out and you were part of them. They may be some of their favorite games, but they don't know you, and they don't know even if they even see you in the credits, they don't really know what you did, or if those games had anything to do with you. And I'm like, okay. The second one was, well, your games came out in years where there was a lot of competition. So when Fallout came out, a few months later, Baldur's Gate came out. The RPG, genre itself just revived. So by the time Arcanum came out, it was competing against a lot of really, really good RPGs. And RPGs had gone first person, and so just a lot of competition. I'm like, okay. And then the third type, I shouldn't say person, the third type I got was, do you really deserve one? Are you that egotistical that you think that you deserve an industry-wide recognition award? And I remember thinking, maybe not. Maybe that's my ego poking out. Now, all 3 of these responses made me think. Although sometimes I thought about, it made me think about the speaker, because the person I shared an office with after everyone had left said, you do know that some of them were trying to be kind and some of them were trying to be unkind. I think maybe he knew I sometimes don't get that. I don't know why people say why they say. I just like, okay, that's what they said. And he said, yeah, I think the first group saying you need to network was being a little kind, but that last group of saying you don't deserve one was kind of trying to be unkind. And he goes, I think the answer is somewhere in the middle of, well, maybe your games came out when there's strong competition and maybe people just don't know who you are. And I was like, okay, that made me think about it. So I thought about that and I'm like, some of those people were deliberately trying to be unkind. But then it made me think about, what does it say about my desire to be recognized? Why did I have this? And I thought about it a long time, and I'm going to say right now that this video is not me trolling for an industry award. And despite me just saying that, some of you are like, no, that's why you're doing it. And I also realized now that I've been doing this a year and a half, I realized that despite me saying no, some of you are still going to think that's why I'm doing it. These are the same people who think I started the channel because I wanted to eventually have a Kickstarter for a game I was making, or I was trying to get a publisher deal, or any of that. And no matter what I say, and the fact that I got offered a deal and I said no, those people still believe it. It's like, nope, that's what he's doing. I can read minds. That's what he's doing. So I don't know how to convince people that I'm not trying to troll for an award here, but I'm not. Although those kind of people, that's one of the reasons a lot of my fellow developers won't make YouTube channels. They just can't take that kind of, I hear what you're saying, I'm going to assume the worst about you, and no matter what you say, I'm right. You're horrible. I made a whole video about why my fellow developers are not making YouTube channels. And I will admit that for part of my career, maybe I should say the first half, there was an industry-wide game developer recognition award that I really wanted. I coveted it. And I had told some of my coworkers, so maybe I wasn't that secret, that I really wanted it. I actually attended a couple of the award ceremonies thinking, I wonder if I'm going to get called. And I was never called. I watched other people go up and get it. They totally deserved it. And I was like, yeah, I can totally see why that person's getting the award. And all I can tell you in the last half of my career past that, I feel like I have moved past that. I haven't thought about that award in a long time. In fact, I thought about it when I was thinking about writing this video, and I was like, oh yeah, there was that award I really wanted. And I realized I haven't thought about that award in at least a decade. So I can honestly say I think I've moved past wanting it. But it made me wonder what I could have done differently. This isn't a regret. I don't have a whole lot of regrets about what I did. I have some regrets about what I didn't do. But it's kind of a fair thought And it's not even, when I thought about it, it's not even what I could have done differently. It's kind of what, should I have done things differently? Should I have done different things to try to get some kind of industry recognition? And I realize now, as I get to the closing chapter of my career, I really care more that my games are out there and that some of them are 20, closing in on 30 years old. People still like them, still think they're good games, and still think they're influential. That there are elements of those games that are driving development and design of current games. And I can't think of any better kind of legacy than that. So I think that would more than suffice. I think that kind of makes me happy and fills that hole I had of, gee, there was no industry award. Plus, I got that reboot one.